For the 27th, may I have a roll call, please?
Chairwoman Amanda Jackson Denmark.
Here.
Vice Chair Charlie Wetmore.
Here.
Commissioner Kathleen Duncan.
Here.
Commissioner Rich Delcor.
Here.
Commissioner Jason Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Lydia DePaul.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Flynn.
Okay. Notice regarding adjournment, the Planning Commission will not hear new items after 9:30 unless authorized by a majority vote of the commission members present. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 may be continued to the next regular meeting or special meeting date as determined by the commission members. Notice regarding public comments. Every member of the public who's recognized to speak shall address the chairman and in speaking avoid disrespect to the commission, staff, or other members of the meeting. State your name and address when speaking for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. May I have an adoption of the agenda? A second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The adoption of the minutes for March 23rd. Have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
There are no public comments.
Okay. Is there any old business? Okay. Okay, we have a late commissioner. New business. We'll jump right into the UDO amendment. This is a public hearing, so I have to call for, what is it called?
For 3 calls for public comment.
3 calls for comment. So is there anyone here to comment going once? Anyone to comment twice? Anyone else comment the 3rd time? Okay, we'll close that. So it's the Unified Development Ordinance Amendment, amendments to the Town of Bluffton's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, and Charlotte's going to present.
Excuse me. Thank you and good evening. The amendment tonight relates to the number of terms that members can serve on commissions, committees, and boards that are governed by the Unified Development Ordinance. And the reason for the amendment is to provide for consistent term limits between those boards, committees, and commissions that are governed by the UDO and those that are governed by the General Town Code. And the purpose is to allow for the retention of members who desire to continue to serve. And of course, members have to be approved by Town Council, and they serve at the pleasure of Town Council. A term limit is 3 years. And under the UDO, currently, it's a maximum of 2 terms. Potentially, there could be a 3rd term if it's deemed in the best interest of the community. And after the term limit has expired and a member is not reappointed, there has to be a year absence before that member can be reappointed to a board, commission, or committee. And under Town Code, there are no term limits. Again, a member would serve at the pleasure of Town Council. And so what we are proposing, as you see here in the proposed text amendment that's highlighted, is to reference the portion of the Town Code relating to term limits. And as you can see, the length of the term and the removal of a member also refers back to the General Town Code, so that would be consistent. I'm going to skip this slide here, it's not pertinent. And let me go back to this so you can absorb that for one moment if you need to. In considering any amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, there are 5 criteria that have to be considered. None of them in this case are applicable to what is proposed. And to take action on this, you can either vote to approve the amendment as provided, you can choose to suggest an alternate amendment, or you could deny that amendment. And if this moves forward tonight, either an approval denial or a change to what's proposed, it would go to the Town Council on May 10th, and then for a final reading and a public hearing on June 14th. If you choose to make a recommendation tonight, here's the proposed motion. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
How about I start on the far end? Lydia, anything?
I do not.
I think it's a good thing. I've experienced myself how hard it is to recruit members of the planning commission in the locality I work in, and I think it's a good thing to try to keep the people you have because there's so few people willing to serve these days.
Agree. I think it's a good idea if we can develop some continuity and some experience.
I agree also, because it is very difficult to find people who wanted to put up their time that are, from the public standpoint, at least from the education standpoint or whatever it might be, that they want to care about doing it.
Down here, same thoughts? Different thoughts?
I have different thoughts on that. While I respect the position that it is difficult to fill those positions at times, my concern is there's a value in having term limits in terms of, or the number of terms, consecutive terms that you can serve, just from getting fresh blood in there, new ideas, new questions being asked, opportunities for young professionals to be able to step in. And in those vacancies is where you start doing the real work of going and finding those people to fill those positions. So I actually appreciate the having of the number of terms listed. That being said, I am still sensitive to the issues of having to find somebody to fill a position. Oh, and additionally, we're in a really fast-growing town with a lot of people, which brings a lot of new blood. We're not the same size as we used to be. So even bearing all of that in mind, I mean, I don't mind extending it to a 3-term. There was a point brought up to me at some point recently of, it can take a little while to get your feet under you in terms of, right now I still feel like I'm a year into this plus, and I still feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. So again, I see value in extending the term, but perhaps only 3 consecutive terms rather than a no term number of terms. That's where I would fall on that.
Charlie, any comments?
Just out of curiosity, I failed to ask this the other day in a conversation. What is the history of bringing this UDO amendment before us? Was it staff originated because of challenges getting people? Was it council originated?
It's kind of a mixture of both. One, the issue of being able to, have individuals that potentially want to stay on for those longer periods. But then also being more consistent with our town code, just because of for whatever reason, however many years ago that was added to the code, that it's just, it kind of hinders our ability to keep individuals. And again, it doesn't mean that, someone is going to stay on the board in perpetuity. So
we're not stuck?
You're not stuck, no. You serve at the pleasure of town council. Right. So, and every time that the terms are up, we obviously inform town council as to, certain persons' terms are up. If they want to continue to have them, be appointed, they can. If not, then they would let us know, and then we would obviously move forward and try to find someone else.
Another question. Are there other commissions or boards that are having a harder time recruiting and retaining people than this one?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's what makes me comfortable with this. I mean, I respect Kathleen's point about not wanting to lock up positions, especially with the influx of new talent. But I think there's 2 things that are there. One is the other commissions and boards that need people, and at the pleasure of town council. At some point, I may not be at the pleasure of town council, and somebody else may come in to replace me.
That point might be now. I did want to just follow that up. Having been on council years ago when we actually initiated this, the whole thought process was, it's a growing town. There are going to be more people. They're going to be beating down the door to be on these boards and commissions. And unfortunately, in the last 3 years, I've seen that's not true. I mean, we're 30,000 people in the town of Bluffton now, and to get 7 members on one board is like pulling teeth sometimes. So I understand and I share some of your concerns. I just, in a practical sense, I don't see a way around it at this point in time. And I do appreciate we're dealing with 2 different, basically conflicting written areas that we need to clean something up.
Ditto. Thank you. Okay, does anyone want to provide a recommendation to town council?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I move to recommend the amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 2, Administration, Section 2.23B, Establishment Boards and Commission Member Terms, Number of Terms.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just for some clarification, I think we had, and pardon me for interjecting here, I think the proposed motion, we had, or I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it whether it was going to be an approval with amendments, or a denial. What kind of recommendation you want to make?
Recommend to approve.
I thought so, but just for the record.
For the record, to approve. Any further discussion? Or was that our discussion, Richardson? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, thank you. Okay, next is the Indigo Cove Townhomes Preliminary Development Plan. A request by the applicant TJ Washburn of Winchester Homes on behalf of the property owner PKP Group LLC for the approval of a preliminary development plan for the Indigo Cove Townhomes located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Bluffton Parkway and Buck Island Road.
Amanda, I need to recuse myself on this one.
Okay, Kathleen is recusing.
Thank you. This is a preliminary development plan, Indigo Cove Townhomes. A request by the applicant, TJ Washburn of Winchester Homes, on behalf of the property owner, PKP Group LLC, for approval of the preliminary development plan for Indigo Cove Townhomes. Property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Bluffton Parkway and Buck Island Road. This is an aerial with the property superimposed over it. It is the northeast corner of Buck Island Road and Bluffton Parkway. Project description and background. This application is for preliminary development plan located within the residential general zoning district and is subject to the standards set forth in the Town of Bluffton Unified Development Ordinance. Project consists of the construction of 83 single-family attached units with an amenity center, sidewalks, and associated infrastructure. Staff comments on the preliminary development plan were reviewed at the March 9, 2022 meeting of the Development Review Committee. The applicant provided a response to comments and updated exhibits to address the comments provided. This is the conceptual plan that was submitted. This site layout plan over 2 sheets. Review criteria. The Planning Commission shall consider the criteria set forth in Section 310.3A of the UDO in assessing an application for a preliminary development plan. The applicable criteria are provided below, not followed by staff findings. Staff findings were included in the packet. And these are the 6 criteria that are in Section 310.3. Planning Commission action. Planning Commission has the authority to take the following action: approve the application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application with conditions, table the application, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant. And staff recommendation: staff recommends a preliminary development plan be approved subject to the following condition: that at the time of final development plan submittal, the applicant shall provide documentation that the proposed overflow parking and community green located in the power line easement is permitted. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
the applicant wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Chris Polk. I am official title is Vice President at Winchester, but I'm a principal. And just wanted to come and share our vision for what this is. We've owned this property for a little time now and been working through it, giving us the opportunity to see what the town may need more so than other things, and wanted to share exactly what we're thinking and the way we do business in general. So thank you for having me, and we appreciate all that you're going to do for us in helping guide us to this place. The biggest one thing we want you to understand about Winchester is that we're thoughtful designers. I'm an architect by education. It may or may not hurt me when I tell you I went to Clemson, but the truth of it
For
is that
Tigers.
it happens. I get it.
Right, Wallace?
So by education, I'm an architect, and have been in the building development business all of my professional career. And so we built a team of incredibly thoughtful people. And because I run the operations of the company, TJ being the other part, is really the guy out front making sure identifying properties. But because I run the operations, I have the latitude that we are careful and we serve a moderate luxury product, mid-level luxury product to everybody. So because of our buying power and the number of units we do every year and lots of on the ground, we're able to provide these to the majority of people in the community, not just an elite few. So out of the pyramid of folks that are building and they're developing, we don't operate in the elite. I'm not at Sea Pines. That's just not what we do. But people from a community can enjoy and don't have to give up the quality of life because we're thoughtful about the way it's done and the way it looks. And the community has been considered in every way. So Bluffton won't have to give on design to approve this, because we've considered it. It'll look coastal. It'll feel like it's supposed to. It'll have a sense of community. It'll have all these features that it begs for a townhouse community because it's in Bluffton. Every time we do a community, if we were going to do one in Clemson, we may paint them orange. But it goes well beyond that. So we talk more about technology, wellness, air quality. And Paul, our real architect, will speak to some of these things. But we want to make sure that the quality of life and sense of community, a sense of place. So not only do the people that reside there have a sense of place, but it doesn't look out of place in the community of Bluffton. So I think before I go on too far and talk too much, because that's what I tend to do, especially when I'm nervous. Having said that, everything that we do, I believe, from beginning to end, will give you something to be proud of because we're already proud of it. We can't put it in the world. I need to sleep at night. I'm a South Carolina resident. I'm a native. TJ's from Georgia, just across the river in Augusta. And we care. So when we leave a community complete and ready, I like to be able to drive my children, my wife, my aunts, my uncles, and anybody else by and be able to say it and not duck my head thinking I don't want them to know I was a part of it. It's just not the way we do business. And it may seem oversimplified, but the truth of it is that we want to leave a legacy as Winchester and be known for what we do in any one of our projects in Athens, Augusta, Aiken, North Augusta. We now are starting one in Brunswick. So these communities we develop and build, we take thoughtful design to levels that typical residential developers do not do. And we care. That our motto is we do the right thing for the right reasons. And so that's where I'll stick it and let Paul try to explain some of these details to you. So thank you for your consideration. And I believe we're going to build you a beautiful community. I believe you'll be surprised at just how beautiful it will be. So thank you and have a good night.
Yeah, you're really not gonna like me because I'm from Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech. So I'm Paul Stegenge. I'm the architect, and I want to reiterate what Chris said. Number one, as architects, we're not real public speakers, so we get nervous. But we're here to tell you that we're really trying to do a quality development that is that mid-luxury, which means addressing the lifestyle and the lifestyle expectations of our residents, both the ones that are here and the ones that are going to be coming. We're talking about low maintenance materials. We're talking about high efficiency systems. We're talking about, nobody wakes up and says, I want to waste energy. So we want to make sure that we have those kinds of systems that are appropriate and reasonable We're not over the top putting solar panels on top of all these buildings, but we're using LED lights and VRF systems to improve the indoor air quality and reduce our energy consumption. We'll have exterior elements that fit in with what you see around here now. We call it that, that luxury modern, which is the white painted brick with masonry, on the lower levels for durability, and different types of trespa panels and engineered wood, metal eyebrows and metal roofing in featured areas. And so let's see, what else did I have on here? Yeah, there was a nice development over here off of Tabby Shell Road that has some kind of the features that we were talking about. So we had heard that these meetings were, full of jolly and merriment, so we brought the whole team so that if it did break into a dance party, we had enough people to. But we have the landscape architect, we have the civil engineer, we have the owner, myself. Again, we appreciate your service, especially after item number 1 and how hard it is to get you guys to serve. So we're here to answer any questions that you guys have.
And just to be clear on this one, we are not discussing architecture, correct?
That is correct. So this project is not located in the Highway Corridor Overlay District, so it will not come to you. So while they are talking about the architecture, just to kind of let you know, it's not something that you can base your decision on and will not be reviewed by the Planning Commission.
Right. Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to anyone that wants to. I'll start on this.
Please.
Jason, do you want to go first and let really have a break?
Sure. From my experience with these townhome communities, the downfall is always hinges on 2 things: street parking and garbage can placement. I'm assuming you're going to have an HOA in place that addresses those types of issues with some robust rules.
We do.
And y'all can stand up here if you want to speak into the mic, please, so everyone can hear you.
Yes, we'll have a HOA that will address where the garbage cans go and not seen from the street, when they're sitting out on garbage day, they'll have to be. But we have single car garages with 2 spaces, so we'll have places indoor to keep those.
Okay.
Cars will fit for every unit, 1 in the garage, 1 in the driveway, not impede the walkway around. So everybody should be able to park for each townhouse. And then the overflow parking, which is more than meets the needs of your ordinances. It's more than is required, because we know that's a concern. It's always a concern to have overflow parking for guests and things. So I think we've addressed both those pretty readily.
Thank you.
I know you've met the code requirements for parking, but at least down here, what happens is a lot of people from up north bring all their stuff and fill up their garage. Have you given any consideration to potentially expand the overflow parking, number 1, or put a place to park where people can get their mail? You have nowhere for the mail kiosk. They're going to be parking in the middle of the street. Is there any way that you could potentially expand some of the parking, since if somebody has a little party going on, the streets are going to be pretty full?
So the overflow parking has been adjusted time and time again, trying to get to a place that makes sense. And the truth of it is, we were willing to consider the overflow parking. I think because of the green areas that we required, and for the kiosk area too, we can do a pull in and pull out kind of thing. I believe that can be also addressed, and we can look at that. But our best solution for more parking is going to be additional overflow parking on the power lines in the green area. We don't have the street to give it, given the green space requirements.
And that's what I'm asking for. Would you consider increasing the overflow parking? Because you also have an amenity center right at the corner. What's going to be in the amenity center?
So there'll be the HOA office and things up front, and the office space, but then you have the workout. We're not exactly sure. We're trying to still determine that, but there's going to be a workout facility, and then maybe even a small business facility where people can go in, use internet, get away from the house. So we're still kind of working through that amenity center, but it's primarily workout and office area.
And that's just making my point. If you have the kiosk up there, 3 spots next to the amenity center, if you can increase that overflow parking a little bit, I think it would really help. So just a consideration.
The overflow parking is not just overflow parking, it's a business parking lot too. You're doing the amenity center and sales or whatever you've got there, the HOA, and like you said, the mail. So I think that was one of my big concerns too, is if you could extend that.
Yeah, and we want to be responsive to the parking. I know exactly what you're talking about. I got 5
All
cars
of
in
our
my
neighborhoods
driveway.
that like we all live in probably, or it's bad. People don't use their garages for a garage.
I have one, I understand. We don't park it.
Sure. So I hate to reiterate everything that everybody just told you, but, so I'm gonna ask you, what's the demographic of the buyer who's gonna buy this home first?
Or are they buying or are they renting?
Buying, right?
Well, they're,
Yeah, it's a little complicated. These are single-family, attached, property line for sale.
for sale.
However, we think we have one buyer, you hear about them on the news all the time, begin with a color and a rock in their name, that would come in and buy the entire development. So we would be selling maybe perhaps 1 sale instead of 83 sales. But we are developing it for 83 sales.
We are.
If I could remind the board that you cannot base your decision off of that fact. So again, these are townhomes, a townhome product, a fee simple lot, individual parcels, individual, tax IDs and all that. So it's no matter what, it's a townhome product.
The reason I'm asking is that for the same reason that you've already heard twice. I am big about the parking. You got visitor parking, there's no designated visitor parking. You only have, you meet the requirements, that's not the question, but I agree that I think that if you could expand and provide additional parking, whether it be for the kiosk or for visitor parking, because how you're gonna deal with the HOA in the past, what happened, are they gonna be ticketing people if they are sitting, their child is visiting and all of a sudden it's overflow parking, and the overflow parking is already full. So that is probably a big one now.
Yeah, the lifestyle expectations continue to evolve.
Yeah.
And I would think that primarily our market's going to be that early professional and mid-professional. Just getting ready perhaps even to start that path down a family in a big lot by a school. But we'll also have a lot of, end-of-career people who are looking to downsize their homes because it's going to be really that mid-luxury product with large bathrooms and large kitchens and the kind of amenities that, would attract our spouses.
Josh, would you like to speak?
Get back to the parking. In addition to the overflow, we've also got some on-street parallel parking spaces. And we do have some capacity in there where we can add some more parallel parking, which will help with visitors. We've also got some room near the kiosk to add parallel parking. So that should help alleviate some of that need to overflow, for the overflow expansion.
Well, you know how like our neighborhood is, there's people everywhere. They park everywhere. We get tickets all the time. So that's why I just want to make sure there's enough going forward with that many units.
Right, I don't disagree with that.
Do you have a plan in place for when people inevitably park on the street, not in parallel parking spaces? In terms of making sure there's emergency vehicle access or anything like that? Or do you, just a lot of times when there is not street parking, people still make street parking because there's still a need for it?
Yeah, that's good. That's going to be a POA issue. On the fire
But as an
department
architect, I could decorate it. I can make it look really nice.
In our POA and HOA, they're usually third party, but we use the same one a good bit. So there are rules in place and there are tickets, there are, removal procedures, those kind of things, but I can't speak to them, specifically.
If I may, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Can we make sure that everybody speaks into the microphone? We have people who are watching maybe on Zoom, and we want to make sure that we record everything.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else besides parking that anyone has?
I've got a couple more.
And to get back to the parking, one thing to note, even if we do add more parallel parking spaces, it's not going to detract from our active open space calculations. That's all contained within the right-of-way acreage.
Thank you. Charlie, you had something other than parking?
They hit the mail kiosk. Is there, and this is more directed towards staff, is there a TIA requirement on this, traffic impact analysis, or no?
There is, and they provided that. DOT actually reviewed it and approved it. That's why they have a right-in, right-out on their southernmost entryway.
But no deceleration lanes were required?
No deceleration lane was warranted.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to make sure, because you know how busy Buck Island gets there, and that's one of the busiest intersections in town right there. And if Bluffton Parkway 5B ever comes to fruition, it's going to be even busier. So that's why I was curious about that. You made a comment that you're responsible developers and you put together a great product, and I appreciate those comments. We are tasked, however, with making sure what's written holds you to those comments. And I can think of another developer in town that made those same remarks in one of these rooms here, and when the market turned, he left half of the project undone and buildings partially done. So we're just trying to do the best we can from up here. This project inevitably is going to be a parking nightmare no matter what we do. So I just, as an individual to individuals, ask you to do the best you can to make it so that it's not as much of a nightmare as it could be. And then the only other question I have for y'all is, this is a by right development. You have the rights inherent in the property to put this many units there. Matter of fact, I think you're putting a little bit less than what you could. You know, it's important to the town of Bluffton to have an affordable component, workforce housing, as part of new developments. And because this is by right, we cannot require you to do so. Are there any plans or thoughts as to taking 10 or 20% of this and making it workforce related as far as the cost of it?
All right, I can speak to that. We're not setting aside workforce, but we are being very economical on our selections of building materials so that these can be afforded by more than those people that are mid-career. Our price point is intended to be much more attractive than what we'd call lux. We're trying to be mid-lux.
I would just ask that you consider taking a section of that and rethinking a section towards maybe something that's a little bit more affordable to the policeman and the fireman and the teacher in the community. And I know you're not required to,
Right.
but
The design in the inherent, so the floor plans are semi-worked out. You know, we're still working through a few things, trying to make sure we include everything that we can include for people's today's desires. But the interior units in a lot of cases are smaller, and it doesn't necessarily buy into exact workforce housing, but they will be, you know, less bedrooms, more affordable, as opposed to the end units, which will offer a little more square footage, you know, a little pricier. So I think we have considered it. We will not consider it again, but I'm letting you know that we've been thoughtful about some of the buildings with the interior units, making them a more affordable product, because they are less desirable than the end products, of course, but we've gone an extra step in making them considerably smaller so that they're more affordable.
thank you.
I agree with you and Charlie on that.
Does anybody else have a comment?
I have one more question. Do you know how big your garages are going to be?
The whole unit is 24 feet wide, so one garage would be 12 by 22. Some might be 24 as we bump out the front at the end units and stuff. But it'll be big enough for, I have an F-150. It's going to be big enough for people to put their truck in the garage.
With a 9-foot door. So it's not even so we try to be even thoughtful in the little details like that, so that even a 9-foot door, you may have to turn your mirrors in on a bigger truck, but still, everybody should be able to park in the garage.
But
Just
not
something
at
to,
250.
sorry.
No, sir, that's not going to work for you, but if you can't get in your townhouse, I'm glad to take your F-250, sir.
Just a consideration as you're considering parking, just making sure that there's enough room for all of our outdoor things as well as cars, since we all have kind of, you know, said this, but I'm worried that no one will use the garage for parking if there's not enough storage for everything else. So just one more thing to consider as you're developing that scheme.
I have a question. It's probably more for Josh. On Buck Island Road, the backs of those houses face Buck Island. So I'm assuming you're going to have plenty of vegetative buffer so that we don't see that?
We do, there is a required 25-foot buffer. That's before you even get to the back of the lot. And I don't know if you'll have any plans for fencing, any of that.
So the plan for fencing, I believe we have plan for fencing on the ones that border the road. Now, to what extent that goes, whether it's side fencing also, but that has been the plan so far, is to
I
have
just want to
some-
make sure going forward in your final development plan, that doesn't get lost, because those could be ugly
screening. Yes, ma'am.
with people and how people live and things go in the back, and we just don't want to see all of that on the road.
Madam Chairman, if I may, as you know, this will come back as a final development plan. At that time, it will have to go through the Development Review Committee, which 3 of you are members of, and you'll have an opportunity to see the plans and then be able to make comments at that time as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, if that's it, I will entertain a motion.
Can we pull up the suggested staff recommended?
Get you guys, you're typing away as we talk. Anyone? You don't have to do exactly what they have, but that's just a guide.
Madam Chair, if I may, just as a reminder, I know we have some new commissioners here, so at this point, what you can do is approve. You can approve with conditions, or you can deny. What staff has recommended is, as you can see up there, is approval, subject to that following staff condition. If you wish to go with staff's recommendation, you can say something as simple as, I move to approve with the conditions as set forth in the staff report.
Anyone want to try and make the motion?
Just let one of the new guys.
I always knew you were gonna do that.
I already did mine. Go ahead.
I know you did, Dennis. I move to approve the subject property development plan at the time of final development submittal. The applicant shall provide documentation that the proposed overflow parking and community green located in the power line easement is permitted.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, thank you. Kathleen to come back up. 1055 May River Road, certificate of appropriateness, a request by Ansley Manuel on behalf of the owner, Cahill Enterprises, for approval of a certificate of appropriateness, HCO. The project consists of the addition of a 144 square foot weight station area on the right elevation and 960 square feet of outdoor covered seating, restroom, and weight station area on the left elevation of the existing restaurant at 1055 May River Road. Katie.
Good evening,
Hi.
Commissioners. As Amanda just read through the request, this is the request. It is a request by Ansley Manuel on behalf of Cahill Enterprise for the addition, 2 small additions to the existing structure. The project location is here at 1055 May River Road, which is the Cahill's restaurant and market that you are likely all familiar with. This is Highway 46 or May River Road, and you would enter here. The chickens and the Big Peanut are located on this side here. So
Only in Bluffton.
to familiarize you with the site a little bit closer up, this is where all the parking would be and the any of the field farm growing things. This is all towards the back of the property. 46 is at the bottom of your screen. The existing market and restaurant are located in this white area, and then the red highlights the area which would be proposed. This is the proposed landscape plan. So again, you have the proposed areas. They will be removing the shrubs and bushes here, and 2, I believe they are pear trees, they are small fruit trees, and replanting some oak trees along here, as well as a crepe myrtle on, so this is a crepe myrtle, and then 2 live oak trees towards the base there along the drive. The rest of the site is remaining unchanged, so it's the areas in red that they're proposing to alter. I have highlighted on the floor plan for you here. I used a really suspect tool to highlight them, so I'm sorry my lines aren't perfect, but we have the proposed weight station on the right-hand elevation, and then on the left-hand elevation, there's an outdoor seating area. So it's mostly unenclosed space with a small enclosed restroom and weight station, and then they're enlarging the service yard by just a little bit here. That is already an existing service yard, just to incorporate some of those other utilities that you don't want to walk right up to. On the elevations, this is where you can really see my line work. You've got the proposed front and left elevation. So this is the front. If you are standing on 46 looking up that hill, you are going to see this. Here is your proposed porch. There is one bay of empty here. So this wall that you're looking at is actually set back from the front plane of this building by one bay. And then on the right-hand side, you're seeing a continuation of that roof for the weight station that is on this side. If you are inside the restaurant, from here, you're going to be looking at the bird feeders that are outside the window. So
Is that the proposed color?
I will leave that to the applicant when you open up the floor to them. However, I do not believe so. This is the one I chose so that you can see it really clearly. The left elevation here, you're looking at it. If you were standing on the driveway as you go into the parking lot, you'd see this on the right-hand side there. And then this is the proposed rear and right elevation. So this is the side that doesn't really have a sidewalk. You wouldn't really walk up on this one unless you're deciding to go look at the chickens. On this one here, this is if you're coming from the parking area. This is the proposed porch that you're seeing, and you will not see the weight station addition from the rear elevation looking at this, because you'll only see it from the front and the right side. Or, yeah, right side, I'm sorry. So the Planning Commission has the authority to approve this application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application with conditions, or approve the application or deny the application as submitted by the applicant once they have reviewed the criteria, which are found in section 3.17 of the Unified Development Ordinance. I've listed those criteria for you on the screen, and in your staff reports, I have gone into more detail about staff's finding on those. The summary of those findings is that staff has found that with the following conditions, it would be in compliance with the section 3173 of the Unified Development Ordinance and would meet those criteria. The first item is that the roof structure on the left side elevation would need to be modified to a 4 and 12 pitch in order to meet the ordinance. I'm stopping on this one for just a moment because in the highway corridor, the actual code section says that flat roofs are not permitted, and then in parentheses, it says a flat roof is considered anything less than 4 and 12 pitch. So right now, they've got it proposed as a 2 and 12. That's this right here. As you can see, the other side is at a 3 and 12. Because that was built with the original structure, it ties into the roof line. Staff doesn't find a huge issue with this beyond that a flat roof in the highway corridor is considered to be a 4 and 12 or greater. In the historic district, there isn't a number that is tied to it. And so that's something that you should just take note of as you review this application. It is a pitched roof. It is just a low pitched roof that you are looking at here. So it's not an entirely flat roof. The second item that staff has pulled to your attention is that all comments provided by the Development Review Committee for the Development Plan Amendment would need to be addressed and approved prior to the issuance of a Certificate of Appropriateness Highway Corridor Overlay application. The Development Review Committee had a handful of comments for the Development Plan Amendment that has already been reviewed. We're just awaiting resubmitted documents addressing those items. One of those items was that the landscape plan needed to be updated to provide a little bit more information on that. And you can see here where that is looking at. It is primarily the foundation plantings along this area here, just providing the, they'll need to provide the species that are going in as well as the sizes on that. So those are listed in the Development Review Committee comments that are included in your packet. I believe it is attachment 5, but don't quote me on that because I don't have it off the top of my head. I am happy to answer any questions, and we have the applicant here as well, so I'm speaking on their behalf when I say they're happy to answer questions too. Or at least they're here to do so, whether they're happy about it or not.
Would you like to speak?
We're on Indigo Cove is what we were.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's totally fine.
So there's no applicant?
Oh, so Robbie.
I don't see
No,
Ansley, but,
Me neither. I
okay,
do
so
not have
the
it.
applicant is not here.
The applicant is not in attendance.
Okay,
I thought I had applicant. I'm so sorry.
okay, we can still go forward.
Can we?
You can. The applicant's not going to be here to speak on their application, and that creates an issue. Did the applicant say that they were going to be here or confirm that they'd be here? You can also table it for a moment and see if you can give Ansley a call, because she is right across the street.
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
well, I need to make a motion to table
What I would recommend to
or
do
a
is,
pause and switch to the next one.
we can motion to recess for a moment, maybe 2-3 minutes for
Okay.
Katie to give Ansley a call and see if she can be here.
Okay,
And that way we don't have to rearrange the agenda.
Okay.
And if she's not available, then we can just table it for the next meeting.
okay.
Tell
May I-
her to drag Robbie's butt here, too.
I have a motion for a recess of 3 minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, we were able to get a hold of the owner, and they will be here in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So we could,
Can we switch the item or no?
What I'd like to do is something a little bit unusual. This is,
Don't do unusual.
it's a little bit unusual. So we have a slight issue, and I'd like to, this is for an item on the agenda that has already been decided, but we had members of the public who wanted to speak on the Indigo Cove townhome application. They've been kind enough to speak with me during the recess about what they would like to do, and the request has been made to be able to just speak to the planning commission to let their concerns be heard, so that that can assist both the town staff and DRC when y'all are reviewing your final development plans, so that they can perhaps get some of these questions answered at some point. So if, Madam Chairwoman, if it's okay, I'd like to request that they be given an opportunity just to speak while we're in this odd little area with the pending.
Is this something that you're going to relay to the applicant?
The applicant's in the hallway. I think it would be to the benefit of having the applicant in here. I mean, in everybody's interest.
Oh, absolutely. I thought the applicant had left.
actually, I think you're going to go grab them right now.
Richardson, I have a question. If we're rehashing this, do I need to excuse myself from this table during that portion?
Yes, ma'am. Just because this isn't going to be unless
But
we
it's
do
not,
it.
and we're not giving feedback, we're just listening.
Right now, all the applicant or all the public comment has requested is an opportunity just to be heard on this issue. There's not going to be this is not a motion to reopen or anything of that nature at this point. So it's just to bring that public comment before y'all while we're in this meeting, and in the event anything in the public comment triggers y'all to do a motion to reopen or reconsider something that's already been approved, you have that right. But really, this is just about getting that public comment on the record. So,
So how do I get out of what we were doing to get into that?
So this is that's why I said it's going to be a little bit unusual. What I'm going to do is make a couple of complicated motions here, if that's okay. Or we can just, because we have this open item at the moment, so we're either going to have to table it, postpone it, continue our recess, or go ahead and hear the public comment on this one.
Okay, so you're just going to have to guide me on what I'm supposed to say.
So let's continue the recess on this one and then.
So what, I'll make the motions, but I need someone to actually move it, if that's okay. To recommend that we make a motion to table a decision on item 3, 1055 Mid River Road until later in the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And make a motion to accept public comment on item 2, Indigo Cove Townhomes.
So moved.
Second, who was that?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
And now we're ready to accept some of that public comment. And let me be very clear, if Mr. Roberts was here and heard me do that, he would be frowning because I don't know if that complies with Robert's rules despite my presentation that I gave y'all about a month ago.
But
It's the best I can do.
in the sense of fairness, we need to hear the public comment.
Absolutely.
And for those that are about to make the public comment, 3 of us up here are on the Development Review Committee and the staff is, so we will hear your comments. I mean, we will listen to your comments.
I recuse myself on subject matter.
Okay, so this will be 3 minutes, and you need to state your name and address for the record.
Great. My name is Kathy Borner, and I live at 5 Bent Oak Court in Bluffton, South Carolina. We live in the neighborhood, if you look at the map, on the very top edge of that, which is Windtree. So the new development is going to be right, you can see our homes right there on the top. So I think our main concern is talking about a buffer between the green space and the parking and where we live. I'm assuming that parking lot's going to have lights on it, which is going to kind of diminish our quality of life. So I would urge you to consider putting a buffer either on one side or the other side of those areas which are going to affect us. And I already heard earlier, which I didn't know, that a traffic impact had already been approved. Of course, we're concerned also about the traffic, the additional traffic coming and going both on Buck Island Road and the Bluffton Parkway. So I guess that's already been approved, and maybe there's nothing we could be done, but I think everybody in the neighborhood, especially on our side, is very much concerned about having a buffer placed there and or possibly moving the parking further down. I don't know where the property ends there, but if there would be an opportunity to move the parking away from our homes, that would be beneficial for us too. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
That's pretty much what I was.
Okay. Are we okay, Kevin, to close that portion?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So we'll close public comment, and now we are going back to item number 3. No?
Yes, Mr. Cahill is here.
He's here somewhere. I saw him walk in.
There he is.
Okay, so do I need to do my spiel again, or you're good?
I'd like to make a motion to untable item 3.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have untabled.
We better ask some good questions.
So, Mr. Cahill, do you want to speak? Or do you want to just have us ask questions, or?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Well, just come up to the podium in case we have some
Say a few
questions.
words.
Or if there's anything you want to tell us, but
Why are we doing
we'll just start going.
Let's just tell us why you're doing it. Why are you thinking about doing this? What's the purpose of it?
Well, I guess it's kind of to keep up with competition in town. Everybody seems to want to eat outdoors these days since the pandemic. You know, we had a makeshift deal when it was hot and heavy, which I guess Fauci has told us it's over now. But still, we have times of the year where it's nice to eat outside, so that we're trying to offer that option.
Question, was the existing part of it always an indoor dining, or is that once outdoor dining also?
It was once outdoor dining.
Will the new part be indoor dining at some point, or will you keep
No
it?
plans for any more indoor seating. The main thing, we want to add a bathroom, which we really need another bathroom. So we said if we're going to go through the process of just adding a bathroom, we might as well try to do a little bit more.
Speaking of that, I know this isn't necessarily our thing, but building code-wise, if another bathroom has to be added, I don't know if y'all thought about that, or location, I just don't know what the square footage, so just in the back of your mind, just think about that.
We are actually on public sewage now. That's a project it took 3 years to do it. So it's one of the holdups of it taking so long to get to this point.
What about parking? Is there enough, Katie?
We did an analysis of that. Obviously, this has a development plan amendment with that, and the amount of parking that was provided was sufficient to meet the needs of both the existing and then what they're in essence proposing. And I think there's concerns about landscaping as well. While it's not fully shown on that plan right there, that part of that development plan amendment will require, and I think it has it in here, is to address those issues from the development plan amendment prior to final approval. So if this evening, if you choose to move forward with this, these conditions right here, once they're met, as well as the conditions for the development plan, then they can be approved.
Anyone have any questions?
Does staff have a recommendation? Some of the projects we recommend approval, denial, or anything. Does staff have a recommendation?
Staff's found that with the following conditions, and again, this would be the conditions of the approval. If it were to meet Section 317.3 of the Unified Development Ordinance, the applicant is requesting a deviation from that roof pitch of 4 to 12. It is still a pitched roof to tuck under the existing structure's eave, rather than trying to tie it in and potentially create some water challenges with the roof tie-in there.
One of the reasons we had to do it this way was fire code purposes too. The fire department, I guess that was one of the conditions, that the roof, it couldn't be actually attached. It had to be a separate deal. So that the wall in between the outside structure and the existing building will be a firewall.
Well, and aesthetically, I mean, looking at one of the architects up here aesthetically, I don't see how they
I'm
could do
not
it
an
different.
architect.
I'm looking all the way down there.
Aesthetically, I get me in trouble with the law.
I don't have any aesthetic issues on it at all. I mean, I think it's not a flat roof. I know it's defined as a flat roof, but it's still pitched, and it's in keeping with what's already there, the 3 and 12 and the 1 and 12. So I personally don't have any issues with it.
Anyone else?
Robbie, the crepe myrtles and the live oaks that are shown on here, are those existing
They would be existing if they're.
or are they proposed?
The live oak's proposed, the crepe myrtle is existing,
Okay.
I believe.
And the one up by the corner at the turn of the dirt road to the parking lot is also existing?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to get clarification on that. My only comment is, again, I'm sure this is all covered by DRC, is just, this needs to be a real landscape plan with plant quantities, so I know what's proposed and existing, with a foundation plan and a plant schedule that identifies the sizes of it, so.
No breath repair.
What's that?
No breath repair.
That's an interesting discussion we can have at a different time.
A water oak, no. Yeah, where's that? I'd like to make a motion that we approve the addition and renovations to Cahill's Market with the stipulation that all comments provided by the DRC for the development plan amendment must be addressed and approved prior to the issuance of the COA and HCO.
Deviation.
Just real quick, the UDO administrator had already approved the deviation, right? Do we need to address it?
If I may, Katie, would you mind confirming that the UDO administrator has approved that deviation?
Has not formally, but it is the request that you all consider it in your recommendation.
And that we allow for a deviation from the pitched roof versus flat roof to allow for a 212 pitch roof on the addition.
3 or 2?
2.
Second.
Any further
Less than
discussion?
412, how does that?
There you go. Just in case. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you all, thank you so much.
Okay. I will need to recuse myself for item number 4.
Phone's ringing.
That gavel now, watch out.
Yeah, this is where I have to be serious for a minute. Pull this up. Okay. Item 4 on tonight's agenda, Ma Daisy's preliminary development plan, a request by Daisy's Legacy Holdings LLC for approval of a preliminary development plan application. The project proposes the redevelopment of a 1.85 acre site to include restaurant, commercial, and residential uses in 4 buildings. The property is zoned Neighborhood General Historic District, identified by the attached tax map number and located at 1255 May River Road. Jordan?
All right, thank you, sir. Since you read through the applicant request, I'm not going to repeat that for you. Just to give a brief description and background, it is for a preliminary development plan located in Neighborhood General HD zoning district, and therefore it's subject to the standards set forth in the town of Bluffton UDO. Subject parcel is located between Pin Oak Street and Schultz Road with access to the parcel from May River Road. The project consists of 2 restaurant spaces, 2 office spaces, 2 commercial services establishments, and 3 residential units.
Staff comments on the preliminary development plan were reviewed at the March 23rd, 2022 Development Review Committee meeting, and the applicant has since provided a response to comments and updated exhibits to address the comments provided. Due to the project being within the historic district or a historic district, the plan will be required to go through the certificate of appropriateness process as well. Map real quick, just for clarification, the parcel we're talking about here is highlighted in red. You can see Pin Oak Street to your west and Schultz Road to your east. Just for further clarification, underground burrito right next door, Deer Tongue Warehouse, that's the area that we're talking about. Former Pepper's Porch. Here is the conceptual plan for Ma Daisies that was submitted. You have 3 separate parcels here, and there will be a subdivision application further along in the process for that. The buildings on the east of the plan, so building 1 and 2 are both the restaurant uses. Building 3 is the retail services establishment with the residential units on top of it, and then the commercial services in building 4 up here as well. They do have an outdoor pavilion area with existing landscaping shown here, with parking back behind. In terms of review criteria, Planning Commission shall consider the criteria set forth in Section 310.3A of the UDO in assessing the application for a preliminary development plan. Applicable criteria will be all in the next slide. So these 6 criteria, I gave more detailed analysis and findings provided in the staff report. I'd be happy to go over them individually if you'd like me to, or if you have any questions about them. But staff, I'll get to the staff recommendation. Your action here tonight, you have the authority to take the following action. You can approve the application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application with conditions, table the application, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant. Town staff finds that the conditions noted below, which are the requirements of Section 310.3A of the UDO, will be met and recommend that the Planning Commission approve the application with the following conditions met prior to final development plan approval. Number 1 is that per Section 564 of the UDO, 10% residential open space needs to be provided in the plans. Number 2, per Section 511.4A1 of the UDO, a drive aisle width of 18 feet shall be provided. Number 3, per Section 537E, building foundation planting shall be provided on all applicable structures. Number 4, reduce the size of the carriage house to be no larger than 1,200 square feet per Section 515.6F. And number 5, per Table 515.7C1 of the UDO, provide required parking spaces for each restaurant use, taking porches and outdoor seating into consideration. Any questions? And the applicant is also here to answer any questions or provide any additional information.
Why don't we just let the applicant speak first if we could?
Good evening, folks. I'm Wallace Milling with Whitmer Jones Kiefer. We are representing the applicants. The applicants here are Billy Waterson and Miss Bridget Frazier, and we're working for them, and real excited about this project and appreciate y'all's review of it and to answer any questions that you have.
We start, Lydia, you seem to get to start first all the time tonight. Do you have?
I actually do not have questions.
I don't have anything right now.
First of all, I drove back there the other day, and there's a number of buildings that need to be replaced, so I'm looking forward to this. And I don't know the history of the Deer Tongue building, but I understand you're relocating that. Is that true? That's wonderful. My question really comes to the last point on staff's thing, that you will provide enough parking, including for all of the outdoor seating. Is that on this plan, or do you have to change it?
Well, it is. I assume that staff put the comment on there because there might be some confusion about it, but that parking table up at the top left-hand corner of the plan seeks to meet that condition, which, there is a subdivision plan shown here, and basically if you take those first 2 buildings on the right-hand side of the plan, most of the parking up at the top of the plan is associated with those 2 buildings, which are the restaurant uses.
which have, the most dense parking requirement. So those buildings are taken, or those square footages are used, as well as some outdoor seating square footage for porches. And even some of the patio space as well.
So Jordan, could you clarify, is that last comment in your conditions, are the conditions already met?
That, like you said, there could be some confusion here. So in terms of what they provided in that parking table, they have provided for 1,300 square feet is what they contribute towards the porch space being used for outdoor seating. For restaurants, unfortunately, the whole porch has to be considered because it's not on a per table basis, so they can't just say, hey, 500 square feet of this 1,200 square foot porch is being used for restaurant, so we're only allocating that much space. So whether the porch needs to be adjusted a little bit or the numbers just need to be further refined a little bit, we don't have any necessary concerns that they're not going to be able to meet the parking standards. We just have to go through that process and refine that a little bit more, which will be all hashed out going through the final development plan process as well. But just wanted to make note of something so there was final clarification by the time we get to final development plan.
Yeah, and I apologize ahead of time. I seem to be the parking guy along with everybody else here, but it's becoming more and more of an issue. And I'm sure if you're looking at it and you're working with them, that's good enough.
I had the same concern, but I think after my meeting, I was fine.
How's what's happening in the garden structure? How's that being used? What's that for?
It's really very conceptual at this time. It'll definitely go through the historic review board. But right now, the thought is to have some signage there and for it to be an outdoor type garden pavilion type structure. Open air, just some garden elements, maybe some planting on the May River Road side, but opening up and becoming kind of a landscape element on the courtyard side. That's as far as we've gotten with that. It's going to be a little iconic garden-y thing under the oaks, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What's the handicap access on Building 4? How's that work? Because that's that relocated, it's the relocated building, which I think is raised up right now, and from the looks of it, there's not a ramp. And I see the boardwalk in the back, and I don't know if that's the intention is they're parking in the back, coming through Building 3 to get to Building 4. I just didn't know what the...
Yeah, they could do that. That's possible. And we're still working out all of the architectural elements, but there's definitely enough run. That building will be raised up, but think about the Garvin House and how it's raised up very little. So it's not a typical 30-inch elevation change. It's pretty slight. So there might even be the opportunity to have a ramp in the front to it. Because it's, historically speaking, it would be a little cottage that would just have piers far enough out of the ground to get that floor, keep that floor dry.
That'll be picked up during that final development plan, obviously.
Yep. The pad that's up there by the water feature in Bateau, I don't know how you're supposed to say that. Bateau, thank you. I'd prefer to say that correctly from here on out. How is that where it connects up to the sidewalk? It appears right now, I think there's steps that go down into the plaza. How is that being addressed? Is there just going to be a drop off? It doesn't look like it's going to be much more than a step is what it looks like.
That's correct. You can imagine that being like a seat wall height behind a landscape planter. So when you're down in the Bateau water feature plaza space, you're just seat wall height down, less than 30 inches. So
it's kind of a cut through, but you're not really intending people to walk through there necessarily, or are you?
That could potentially, the thought is that it would be a controlled, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be a controlled space so that they could close it off if they wanted to for safety reasons or things like that. But I think that the idea is for that to be more of a public plaza feeling element for the community. to enjoy. So
I'm just wondering if it shouldn't have a step then, rather than it be a seat wall down there, because it's obviously connected to the pedestrian
there is
access.
a step down.
But it's more than, you're saying it's a seat wall height, which would mean like, instead of, that'd be a hefty step to come down seat wall from seat wall
There
height.
is a set of steps. I'm sorry.
You're keeping the steps, okay,
Yes,
thank you.
But along that edge, that's a seat wall. So it is,
Oh.
what I'm telling you, it is depressed in there.
Got it, okay, now I'm tracking what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
Okay. The only other comment I think I have, and I'll check my notes here in a second, but is the tree protection that was shown, and I'm very specifically referring to the 40-inch plus live oaks, one that's in the center between all the buildings really, and then the one that's out kind of by the toe. I just want to make sure that that tree protection is out and meets the town of Bluffton standards. The way it's noted, it's really it's shown really close. The note on the engineer plans basically says, don't park, after we remove the deck, don't park your equipment under here. Well, that note's not going to protect the tree in real life. So I just want to make sure that as it moves through final development, there's some note that tree protection needs to be reset to better protect the live oaks. And very specifically, I was looking at those two having just not enough tree protection, so. I look forward to seeing the landscape plan too in that final, so. I think that's it.
First of all, Ms. Frazier, Wallace, and, I'm sorry, Billy. It is such a pleasure to see this site. That's one of the key sites in town being redeveloped and being planned out. Couple of questions. In the past, Pepper's Porch, specifically the back bar, got kind of loud at night. And the people that were on, what is it, Kirby? Can't remember the name of the street behind it. Yeah, Kirby Lane behind there. Were constantly calling the town complaining. Is there, and I hope this is a yes, okay, is there going to be a live music aspect of it? Part one. Part two, have we thought about noise abatement or not going later in the night with it?
Well, we can't do any music, live music, unless it's a special event. So with the ordinances that were passed at 15, we don't get grandfathered into that. So we've already planned for this not to have consistent live entertainment because of that noise ordinance. And I don't think we're going to be open past 10.
I think 11.
So, and there is no bar out back or anything, so everything is right up.
Yeah, I see the two restaurants on the side now.
But live music definitely in the interior, but we are respectful of the.
So we can't do, we need to relook that. I'm sorry. Having music in the courtyard was one of the pleasures of there, but anyways, that's a side note.
Yeah,
we would agree to your desire.
Yeah.
I guess that's something we need to approach from the other end. The only other thing that I really noted in there, and these are just some questions to clarify in my mind, I noticed some staff comments on the DRC about the building size of Building 1 being 2,800 square feet, which is a little bit larger than what we would anticipate. Do we know what the square footage of Pepper's Porch was with all the additions and everything?
I mean, it's something we could find out, but it was multiple buildings, so there were approximately 4
It was
buildings.
approximately the same size, if not a little bit bigger than what, and I'm going by my memory, I'm just hoping to, so that even though it reads that way, it's like we're replacing what was there with pretty much the same size-wise and mass-wise.
So
is there any concern from staff, because it's in here, that's why I'm asking?
Well, with our form-based code, we have a statement that your footprint of your building can be no larger than what the largest footprint that's allowed in that district. So we brought this to the applicant's attention. So that was a code that was changed prior to this application being submitted. So they do have to meet that requirement. So I don't have the square footages in front of me right now, and I'm not sure exactly what that maximum was. But they'll have to meet that. Again, with the preliminary plan, we're making that comment. We're making sure as they're refining their plans that it does meet those criteria, as well as the fact that it will have to go through a certificate of appropriateness for each building. So those buildings will be approved by HPC in conjunction with the development plans. And I believe we provided in the packet a pretty detailed schedule, just so you can kind of see, because since there are multiple processes, how they intertwine with each other. So definitely we'll be picking those up.
And we don't see this again as planning commission, do we?
You'll at a final development plan for PRC, yes.
PRC. And this is just a comment, I think sometimes we regulate ourselves out of an ideal product, and this may be one of those instances, with the handcuffs on live music and potential handcuffs on square footage on something that's going back where something else was. And that's just a comment, not anything we can do about it necessarily.
And Commissioner Wetmore, if I may, again, because we have a few newer members of the Planning Commission, and it's relatively rare, I think, based off of my experience, for y'all to have historic district products come before you on a regular basis. So if I can just provide a little bit of context, the architectural aspect of it will be reviewed at the HPC level, which has full jurisdiction over architectural matters within the historic district. So that those final elevations are all going to go through a very similar process to the site plan that y'all are seeing tonight. As far as the building size and the building footprint, when Mr. Eichert spoke about form-based code, which I was not very familiar with before helping y'all out here occasionally. Form-based code is essentially, we have identified a few building types, number of different building types that are permitted within the various zoning districts. And as long as the building type, which, could be, Katie's probably going to cover her ears when I try to remember what they are, but, side yard cottage, all sorts of other ones. For some reason, that's the only one I can't remember. But there are a bunch of different building types that can go in there. And so each of those building types are limited footprint-wise. And those are some of the constraints on a development within the historic district. There are a number of different zoning districts within the historic district, from neighborhood core, neighborhood general. If I recall correctly, this is neighborhood general. Historic district, which has the most expansive because it's over there on May River Road. And as far as the noise ordinance, there is a noise ordinance in place that is not part of the UDO, that's part of the town code. And we had similar concerns and similar requests with the site plan that was approved off of Bluffton Parkway, whatever's out in front of Woodbridge. We had those same concerns that were brought up. And from a site plan standpoint, whatever may happen out there, we can't really bring noise into the consideration under the criteria. But there is that code section, and there are some, as the applicant mentioned, there are special exceptions that can be made for events and other things. So just wanted to explain add a little bit of context to some of the discussion.
Thank you.
First, I have two more questions. One is, can you speak to a little bit about how you intend to address stormwater on the property? Can you discuss? I know that you don't have to have anything right now. I'm just curious as to, because I don't see any retention on site, so.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. You thought you were going to have to talk.
I knew she was here, I just didn't know if she wanted to come up and talk.
Yeah. My name is Emily Jean Jones with Ward Edwards Engineering. So for the stormwater, we are actually installing perforated pipe throughout the parking. And then throughout the main facility area, we do have stone trench as well. And we have met the compliance calculator already for the Silico ordinance. And we meet criteria for our design.
Generally speaking, the term that has been coined for this that is pretty popular is low impact development. I mean, it's a lot of permeable parking spaces, so a lot of the water is going to perk. And
So this is This is permeable parking?
It's gravel, yes.
The whole way back is all gravel?
Yes.
It's 57 stone or
Yes.
crush, okay. Or crush and run?
I'm not 100% certain. I'm not sure if we've gotten there yet in our design, but I can get back to you.
And there's no issue with the expanding that drive aisle to be 18 feet wide in terms of how that's going to affect your calculations or where your ability to even put those trenches, perforated pipe in the parking lot?
No, the perforated pipe will go parallel with the drive.
Yeah, you see the green space up there?
Yeah, it's going in the green space, okay. That answers my question, thank you. And then the other question that I had was, there was a comment from the town staff about the alignment of Building 1 and Building 2 being in alignment with May River Road. And this is, to me, still not in alignment. It doesn't seem to be a major sticking point, but I wanted to ask if it had been explored, an option of rotating that so that it did, and if what the implications were as to why that may have been abandoned, if that was.
Tree canopy. The tree canopy is, the existing buildings were tucked in these same areas. And we believe that we can relocate the old Townhomes factory without disturbing the tree canopy. And so we're tucking it in right underneath where the existing building was.
But it's not the same alignment as the Deer Tongue building it was prior to its being relocated, correct? It's now being more aligned with the property line rather, because before I don't think the Deer Tongue building was, it was not in alignment with the property line either. It really wasn't in alignment with May River Road or the adjacent property line, which is angled. But this is not in the same alignment either.
This is where the existing cinder block building is where the Deer Tongue building is being relocated. And so it's a swing. If you think about, I don't know if I can use a cursor here. Can you see this, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, if you think about this structure being right here, which is where it is more or less, we're swinging that guy right there.
Sure.
So there is a gap. If you go look at that tree, there's a gap in that canopy right there where we can kind of swing it into without having to destroy that canopy. And it aligns well. So
You're referring to the alignment of Building 4, though, correct?
She's talking
Building
about
4
the front of the buildings to
is the old
street.
Deer Tongue building.
Well, the same thing applies to this building. This is the alignment of the existing building.
It's close. This appears to be, and perhaps it's just a matter of how that setback is shown. This appears to be closer to the property line. Again, like that setback may be throwing off that perspective. But it's a slight, to me, it appears to be a slight shift in that rotation of the building. And I was just curious if you looked at, because one of the comments was Building 1 and Building 2 are not in line with May River Road. And the canopy is forward towards May River Road, but Building 1 still could be, you could still look at making it in alignment with May River Road. I tend to think that you've picked the right option. I'm just asking, because I think what happens is you compromise your open space. I was hoping to hear you basically say that is what I was really trying to get out of you. Because the reason I say that is because the UDO specifically outlines it has to be in alignment with May River Road. When you are breaking the rules and you're deviating from them, I don't have an issue. I just want to make sure it's clear as to why we're doing that here and why we're allowing that here versus why we might not allow other people.
Right?
Yeah.
You think of the future.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? I have just one curious note that I almost forgot to ask. Why are we subdividing it into 3 lots? Just curious.
So the way that the form-based code is set up is that you're allowed one principal structure and one accessory structure per lot.
Good enough.
Yeah, the 1.8 acres basically got one building and a second building is what we could have So,
Yeah.
it would be a disaster for that size of.
No, I think overall, it looks like a good plan. I mean, obviously, there's more to come, but.
And I'm assuming the configuration of that is driven by the fact that you've got to get the parking associated with.
Yeah, the restaurant versus, yeah, absolutely.
It's your relief, Charlie, too. There will be live music outside of the events because the ordinance does allow for acoustics, but not amplified music unless it's an event, so.
Can you please email us all the schedule?
We will.
I've missed that. I've missed that there. But, okay, if staff, if you don't mind pulling up the proposed. Thank you. And if somebody would, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Mr. Commissioner, if I may, just as a matter of practice, I don't think we have anybody here from the public who wants to speak on this.
Yes. Is
But
there any
we just
public-
want to ask.
Is there any public comment on this project? Okay, having asked, commissioners, I'd entertain a motion.
A motion to approve Ma Daisy's preliminary development plan with the conditions as proposed by staff.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
Okay. Is there any discussion about anything from staff?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Just so you know, Mr. Richardson has a statement real quick.
We just adjourned.
It was a joke to
Don't
Kevin,
tell us
but
you're leaving.
it was just that deer tongue is a plant.
Yes.
Is a what?
It's a plant. Yeah, sure everyone understands. There are no actual deer tongues hanging